Hello, everyone. My name is Laberia Hardy. Today, I will be presenting cultural insights on the Federal Republic of Brazil, a country in South America that is home to 209 million people. Do you remember watching the 216 Summer Olympics? The Games were held in Rio de Janeiro, one of Brazil's most famous cities. In this presentation, we will cover Brazil's geography, cuisine, language, religion, the BRIC status, the Amazon rainforest, and the Carnival Festival. Let's start with geography. Brazil is the largest country in South America and the fifth largest country in the world. On the left, you see a map of South America with Brazil shown in the color tan, bordered by multiple countries on the north, south, and west. In fact, Brazil shares a border with every South American country except for Chile and Ecuador. Brazil's eastern border is comprised of 7,400 kilometers of coastline along the Atlantic Ocean. Next, the middle picture shows some of the key features in Brazil. Notice the Amazon River near the top. The capital city, Brasilia, is noted in the bolder font near the center of the country. Rio de Janeiro, the site of the 2016 Summer Olympics, is along the Atlantic coast. Lastly, our photo on the right shows the Amazon rainforest. Besides rainforests, Brazil also has dry grasslands, hills, wetlands, plateaus, and a long coastal plain. Brazilian cuisine has influences from the indigenous cultures and the Portuguese culture. The Portuguese came from Europe and settled in Brazil during the late 16th century. The dish that you see here on this slide is called muqueca. Muqueca is traditionally cooked in a clay pot. The entire clay pot is brought to the table, and as it is uncovered, the fragrant steam fills the air. Muqueca is a fish stew made of fish, tomatoes, onions, coriander, and coconut milk. It is often served with rice or farofa, which is a toasted meal. Here we have three other traditional Brazilian dishes shown. On the left, feijoada is a hearty stew made of black beans, sausages, and pork. When cooked the traditional way, feijoada takes 24 hours to prepare, starting with soaking the beans and desalting the pork. Feijoada is traditionally eaten on Wednesdays and Saturdays in Brazil. In the middle, we have a traditional Brazilian dessert called brigadeiros. Brigadeiros are sweet balls made by heating condensed milk, mixing it with cocoa powder, whisking the mixture in butter, and then shaping the mixture into balls and rolling them in sprinkles. Yum! Sounds delicious. They are very sweet and a popular dessert throughout Brazil, served often at parties. On the right, picanha is barbecued meat, most often the rump of an animal. Traditionally, the meat is only seasoned with salt before cooking it. Barbecues are popular in Brazil and also feature wild boar and chicken hearts. Brazilian language. 99% of the population in Brazil speaks Portuguese. In fact, Brazil is the only country in South America that speaks Portuguese as its official language. The reason that Portuguese is spoken in Brazil, whereas the rest of Latin America speaks Spanish, goes back to colonization. Brazilian land was originally settled by Portuguese explorers, starting with Pedro Alvares Cabral, who reached the Brazilian coastline in 1500. When the Portuguese first arrived in Brazil, there were an estimated 6 to 10 million indigenous people speaking 1,300 languages at the time. Sadly, more than 90% of the indigenous people perished in the Great Dying during colonization. Today, there are fewer than 181 indigenous languages spoken by about 170,000 indigenous peoples. Portuguese is not only the official language in Brazil, but it is also widely spoken throughout the country. Brazil's current population is around 209 million people, and 208 million are Portuguese speakers. In addition, 83% of the indigenous peoples speak Portuguese as their second language. Compare this to only 10 million Portuguese speakers in the country of Portugal today. Clearly, Brazil has outpaced Portugal in language and population growth. Religion in Brazil. Brazil has the largest Catholic population of any country worldwide. 65% of Brazil's population is Catholic. Brazil has more Catholic churches than any other nation worldwide. When the Portuguese settled in Brazil, they brought Jesuit priests to convert the indigenous peoples to Catholicism, and that legacy of the time period of colonization is Roman Catholicism. The images shown here on the screen may be familiar to you, as they all depict Brazil's most famous statue. What is important about this statue is that it shows the connection of Brazilian culture with Roman Catholicism. The statue portrays Jesus Christ and is named Christ the Redeemer. The proposal for the statue was made by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Rio de Janeiro in 1921. A Catholic organization started a campaign to collect donations throughout Brazil to pay for the construction of the statue. The statue was completed in 1931 and stands 98 feet tall. Brazil is one of the BRIC countries. The term BRIC was first used by Goldman Sachs in 2001 in a company report that predicted the combined economies of four countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, would supersede the combined economies of the current wealthiest countries by the year 2050. Jim O'Neill, the Goldman Sachs global economist who authored the report, also predicted that the four BRIC countries would be among the top six worldwide economies by the year 2050. This is a reasonable prediction, since these four countries combined account for 40% of the world's population and 25% of the world's land mass area. The BRIC countries have annual summits to strategically grow their economies together. The BRIC countries have since added South Africa to their coalition to become BRICS. Brazil is also home to the Amazon rainforest. Wildfire destruction of the rainforest has made international news. An even greater concern, perhaps, is the continued deforestation. 62% of the world's rainforest topography exists in Latin America, but the rainforests have been wiped out due to the slash and burn process that creates pasture lands for cattle farmers. What happens is that a multinational corporation interest will build roads that cut through the rainforest. As soon as the road is constructed, then local peasant farmers slash and burn the forest alongside the road to clear areas for new pasture lands. The Amazon rainforest has lost 2,400 square miles during the past 10 years. This amount of land is equal to 8.4 million soccer fields or 10.3 million American football fields. One of the most well-known annual events in Brazil is the Carnival that takes place 46 days before the Easter festival. Carnival originated as a Roman Catholic holiday in which Brazilians would enjoy a huge party before Lent. Carnival is celebrated in cities throughout Brazil with parades, costumes, masks, drums, music, samba dancing. Businesses close down during Carnival so that everyone can celebrate in the streets. In summary, we have learned in this presentation about Brazil's geography, cuisine, language, religion, BRIC status, the Amazon rainforest, and the Carnival Festival. Let's close with a quote from actress Morena Baccarin about Brazil. She states, "They have a joy for life in Brazil unlike any country I've ever seen." Here are my references for today's presentation. Thank you.